we can go right ahead and talk about the Lakers and their current situation and their playoff hopes, because so far it looks like the worst possible scenario for them is going to happen. And I was hoping that it wasn't going to come to this, but so far I've been proven wrong. And it's not really the Lakers' fault. It's more so the fact that the rest of the teams are really, really close as opposed to that. But regardless, the Lakers have dropped all the way down to the 10th seed. And I said that this was like, there were numerous amount of scenarios that could have happened. They could have either won out and make it all the way to the playoffs, but that loss to Golden State ultimately set them back and prevented them from even being able to make it out of the play-in. So they are locks for the play-in. And what matters now is whether or not they play to compete against the 1 seed or they play to compete against the 2 seed. And that's obviously going to impact their success going deeper into the playoffs, depending on which team they play in the first round. So right now in the 10th seed, and the 8, 9, and 10 seed, they're tied right now. And those teams are the Kings and the Warriors and the Lakers. Now, those guys have the exact same record for the moment. And it's going to come down to the next 2 games. So in order for the Lakers to actually make it to the 8th seed, and not drop down to the 10th, well, which they already are, and not stay at the 10th or not stay at the 9th, in order for them to do that, they would have to win out these next 2 games and hope that either Golden State doesn't win out or the Kings don't win out and they drop 1 game. That is their ultimate hope in order to make it as high of a seed as they can while still being in the play-in. Now, they also have to hope that the Pelicans don't end up beating. Let me just see their final schedule and their standings. They have to hope that the Pelicans don't end up winning against Golden. Actually, no. They have to hope that the Pelicans end up beating Golden State, and then they end up losing to the Lakers, because the Lakers play the Pelicans as their final game of the season. So if they want to have the best chances of competing in the Western Conference right now, it would look as if they would need to take that 7th seed or that 8th seed from the Kings or Phoenix. And in order for them to do that, they would have to win out, and they'd have to hope that the Kings lose the rest of these games that they're going to play. So the Kings, they play the Suns today at 10:30, and they also play the Trailblazers right after, on Sunday. They play the Trailblazers. So the chances on them dropping a game are relatively high, considering they go up against Phoenix. But that, again, if they go up against Phoenix and they end up winning, then there is absolutely zero chance that they make it to the 8th seed. So they have to hope that the Kings, they drop 1, at least 1. And I think the one that they have the best chance of dropping is against the Suns. And on top of that, the Lakers, they also have to hope that they can win against the Pelicans as well as the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, the Memphis Grizzlies, they seem like a team. The Lakers seem like they're good enough to sort of beat the Memphis Grizzlies. Jesus, my OBS just paused for a second. I have no idea why, but the Lakers, they look like they have the best odds to beat the Memphis Grizzlies, because the Memphis Grizzlies, they are a bottom-feeding team. They aren't a team that's relatively good in terms of in the standings. They've already been eliminated from the playoffs, and they already have so many players down to injury. However, there is a big but, and that is that there's an uncertainty on whether or not LeBron James is going to be playing tonight against this Memphis Grizzlies team. And that is going to definitely raise a bunch of concerns, because if they don't match up against the Grizzlies, there's a serious chance that they end up dropping this game, making it even harder for them to make it to the 8th seed and replace the Kings as that 8th seed. Now, looking at the Warriors schedule and the teams that they play to close out the season, they play the Pelicans and they play the Jazz. Now, they play the Pelicans first, so it seems like all three of those teams have a potential to win one game and then drop the next one. So it's all going to be down on whether or not they can win against the bottom feeders, capitalize on that, as well as winning against the big teams. So we're going to have to see if Golden State will have a chance playing against, like, winning against the Pelicans. Right now, the Pelicans they're not going to be playing at home, and the Pelicans still don't have Brandon Ingram in the lineup, if I remember correctly. He's still under an injury, and even though the Pelicans, they did beat the Kings without having Brandon Ingram, this could spell good news for the Lakers, but it could also spell bad news for the Lakers, because if the Pelicans are good enough to knock off the Warriors, then chances are they're also good enough to be able to knock off the Lakers. And that is going to be a very, very big problem when you look at the seedings. And these are still subject to change, but the Lakers, they want the best chances to avoid playing Denver in the first round, which is what it looks like is going to happen in this in the playoffs. So right now, the Denver Nuggets comfortably hold the number 1 seed after beating the Minnesota Timberwolves the previous day. It was the battle for the 1 seed that night, and Denver ended up coming out on top. So, however, there's still a possibility that the Timberwolves could take the 1 seed if the Denver Nuggets drop the last 2 games, which I don't see happening because their last 2 games are against the San Antonio Spurs and they're also against the Memphis Grizzlies. So it's going to be a great matchup between Jokic and Victor Wembanyama. Assuming Victor Wembanyama is playing in this game, definitely we're going to see whether or not he can stop Jokic. And this, honestly, this could make or break for Victor Wembanyama's Defensive Player of the Year case. I'm not going to really talk about it much because I do want to save it for the next segment coming up, because I really do like talking about Victor and his odds in winning these awards. He's a fan favorite. But regardless, talking about the Nuggets, it doesn't look like there's a high chance that they could drop any of the games coming in later that determine standings. Meanwhile, the Timberwolves, they do have a potential to drop a game against the Phoenix Suns. And the next game that they play is today against the Atlanta Hawks, so I don't really feel too worried about that. However, the Timberwolves, against the Suns, against Phoenix, that is a team that they should definitely be worried about, because Phoenix has shown that they can beat the Timberwolves when they're all healthy and when they're all playing well. And another team that you need to look out for is the Thunder. However, the Thunder's chances of being able to retake the 1 seed, given the matchups that I just mentioned, are relatively unlikely, because their final games that they play against the Milwaukee Bucks, who don't have Giannis, and they also play against the Dallas Mavericks. Now, they do have a chance of beating the Bucks, since the Bucks don't have Giannis, and the Thunder, they don't really have a good enough defender that's able to stop Giannis whenever they match up against him. However, the Bucks, for some reason, they seem to play a lot better without Giannis and with just Dame alone than with both of them together. And it's much more apparent with Doc Rivers as the coach than it was when Adrian Griffin was the coach. The Bucks ended up winning 117-99 against the Orlando Magic, who aren't as much of a competent team as the Thunder are right now, but they're still a very good team, and they're still a team that is already in the playoffs for the Eastern Conference. So the fact that the Bucks were able to come off a win against the Magic, it might play into this next game against the Oklahoma City Thunder. So there's a lot of complications with the West and the standings that could greatly affect the outcome of a lot of these playoff games. And because again, these standings, they could flip-flop, right at the end of the season they could flip-flop. And if you are the Lakers, you want to make sure that you have the best absolute chances of winning. So let's go through a hypothetical, and let's say that the Nuggets continue to keep the number 1 seed, because that is the most likely chance. So the Lakers, they need to win out. they'd have to hope that the Kings drop both of their games, and they also have to hope that the Warriors drop both of their games as well. But regardless, the Lakers, they have to win out if they want even the slightest chance of taking that 8th seed to avoid playing the Denver Nuggets in the first round. Now, let's say on the hypothetical that the Nuggets don't have the 1 seed and they end up dropping the final 2 games, and the Timberwolves or the Thunder end up winning their last 2 games of the season to ultimately take that 1 seed. So that's when I feel like the Lakers should question, should we bother even winning out if they see that that the Thunder, they end up winning out, and they see that the Nuggets end up losing in their game? Do they bother to try and win out? That is the ultimate question that I think the Lakers are going to have to answer, because looking at their schedule and their standings, so the Nuggets, they play the Timberwolves, they play on their final game is on Sunday, and they play the Hawks today. Now, for the Nuggets, I'm just looking at their schedule again. They also play today, and their final game is also on Sunday at a much earlier time. Now, the Lakers and their game on Sunday is going to be, it's going to be at the exact same time. So, depending on how depending on how the game works and how, let's look at the Thunder and see when they play. Okay, so it seems that all the games are going to go down at exactly the same time, making it very, very difficult to figure out exactly what team is going to take that 1 seed. So if you're the Lakers, I feel like you're going to have to pay really, really, really close attention to how all the story of all the other games are going before you go into that next game on Sunday. And if it looks like the Nuggets aren't going to end up winning their last game, but it looks like the Timberwolves or the Thunder are going to end up winning their last game after them winning the first 2 games, then I feel like the Lakers, I think it's a better chance that they just lose the last game, so that way they could compete for the 8th seed and have a much better matchup so they could avoid playing Denver, because playing Denver in the first round when you're the Lakers is like a death sentence, given how they got swept by the Denver Nuggets last year, and it seems like, the Nuggets are going to repeat as champions again. So that is the nightmare scenario for the Lakers. So I think the approach for them should be to take it 1 game at a time, but they absolutely, without a doubt, they have to win against the Memphis Grizzlies. So LeBron, you got to go out there. You got to perform. It is absolutely needed. The Lakers need you in order to even have a chance. So LeBron, he has to play this game. It is so the uncertainty on whether he's going to play, it will be really, really bad for the Lakers and their chances. So he has to play this game. Absolutely has to. But those are all the scenarios that could go down for the Lakers and their playoff hopes and their playoff scenarios. So with that, we are out of time for this first segment. So now I will now be going into the second segment, where I talk about Victor Wembanyama and his Defensive Player of the Year chances, and why my opinion on his chances have sort of changed. So I will be right back after this short break.